Good evening. Come, join me here. The sun has just dipped below the horizon. It has painted the sky in soft shades of orange and purple. We are standing on a quiet shore. The air is cool and carries the clean, salty scent of the sea. The day's warmth is fading from the sand beneath our feet. It is a time of transition. The world is shifting from the busyness of the day to the quiet calm of the night. Here, at the edge of the great ocean, everything seems to slow down. The rhythm of the world changes, becoming softer and more gentle. Listen closely. Can you hear it? It is the sound of the waves, a gentle, rhythmic wash of water upon the sand. Shh! And then a soft retreat. It is a sound that has been here for longer than any of us can remember. It is a constant, steady heartbeat for our planet. This sound has soothed countless generations. It has welcomed sailors home. It has lulled children to sleep. Tonight, we will let this sound be our guide. We will let it carry us away from the worries of the day. We will let it prepare us for a peaceful rest. The sound of the ocean is more than just noise. It is a lullaby. It is a song that nature has been singing since the very beginning of time. Think of it as the earth's own breathing. A slow, deep inhale as the water draws back from the shore. A long, soft exhale as the wave gently rolls forward onto the sand. This rhythm is deeply ingrained within us. It is a pattern we recognize without even thinking. It connects us to the natural world in a very fundamental way. It reminds us that we are part of something vast. It reminds us that we are part of something ancient. It reminds us that we are part of something beautiful. This sound has a remarkable power to calm our minds. The steady, predictable pattern of the waves is incredibly soothing. It helps to quiet the noisy thoughts that often fill our heads at the end of a long day. The gentle rushing sound, often called white noise, can mask other distracting sounds from our environment. This allows our minds to relax more deeply. It creates a tranquil space for us to rest. The ocean does not rush. It does not worry. It simply is. And by listening to its voice, we can learn to simply be as well. Tonight, as we listen, we are not just hearing water moving. We are hearing history. Each swish of the waves is an echo of the past. It is a whisper of the immense journey this planet has taken. The oceans were born from ancient rains that fell for centuries upon a young, hot earth. They have witnessed the rise and fall of continents. They have cradled the very first forms of life. This sound we hear now is connected to that deep, distant past. It is a living link to the dawn of our world, a lullaby billions of years in the making. Our journey tonight will not be measured in miles, but in ages. We are going to travel back through time. We will float upon the currents of history. We will explore the story of our planet's oceans, from their mysterious beginnings to the present moment. But this will not be a lesson full of complex names and dates. It will be a story told in sensations, sounds, simple images. A story designed to be absorbed gently as you drift closer and closer to sleep. The ocean itself will be our storyteller. Its gentle sounds will be the narration. We will begin in a time almost too vast to comprehend. A time when the earth was still forming. We will imagine the first oceans, not blue, murky green-brown. They were born under a sky filled with strange clouds. We will feel the slow, ponderous currents of these early seas. We will listen for the distant rumble of volcanoes shaping the world. It was in these primordial waters that the miracle of life first stirred. A simple, microscopic spark. The ancestor of every living thing that has ever existed on this planet. From there, our journey will carry us forward. Our journey begins in darkness, a time before time as we know it. Imagine a young Earth, a sphere of molten rock and fire hurtling through the blackness of space. It is a violent, chaotic place. There are no oceans yet, no gentle waves, only the hiss and roar of a planet in the making. For millions of years, this fiery dance continues. Asteroids and comets, great balls of ice and dust, relentlessly bombard the surface. Each impact is a flash of unimaginable energy, adding to the planet's mass and heat. But these icy visitors also carry a precious gift. They are delivering the very building blocks of our oceans, molecule by molecule. Slowly, over an immense stretch of time, the Earth begins to cool. A crust starts to form on its surface like a thin skin on cooling lava. The water that was trapped within the planet's molten interior and the water delivered by comets begins to rise. It emerges as vast clouds of steam, shrouding the entire globe in a thick, heavy atmosphere. For centuries, perhaps even millennia, the sun cannot pierce this dense veil. The world is a dark, steamy place. But high above, in the cold upper atmosphere, this steam begins to condense. The first drop of rain forms, then another and another. Then comes the rain. Not a gentle shower, but a deluge of epic proportions. A planet-wide storm that lasts for thousands and thousands of years. Let us now float in these ancient warm seas. The great rain has subsided, and a strange calm has settled over the planet. The sun is a dim, reddish orb in a sky thick with gases unlike our own. The water is a vast chemical broth. It is churned by the planet's internal heat and zapped by bolts of lightning from the turbulent atmosphere. Volcanoes on the seafloor, hydrothermal vents, continuously pump superheated, mineral-rich water into the oceans. They are like chemical factories in the deep, adding new ingredients to this primordial mixture. It is a dynamic, reactive environment. In this global cauldron, molecules are constantly forming, breaking apart and recombining. Simple compounds, washed from the rocks and delivered by comets, are being forged into more complex structures. Amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, and nucleotides, the components of DNA, begin to appear. These are not yet life. They are just complex organic molecules drifting aimlessly in the water. For millions of years, the ocean accumulates these ingredients. It becomes richer, more complex, a liquid landscape of possibility. There is no sound of life, only the whisper of currents and the distant rumble of the Earth's core. Imagine yourself as a silent observer in this lifeless world. Out of the patient silence of the primordial soup, something new begins to happen. It is a change so small, so subtle, that it is almost imperceptible. In some sheltered place, perhaps a warm, shallow pool or a deep-sea hydrothermal vent, a collection of molecules crosses a magical threshold. A simple organic structure develops the ability to create a copy of itself. It is the dawn of replication. The first spark of life has been ignited. These are not cells as we know them. They are far simpler. Just a fragile membrane enclosing a mix of chemicals with the new, miraculous ability to reproduce. For millions of years, these first life forms, called prokaryotes, remain incredibly simple. They are microscopic, single-celled organisms, drifting passively in the water. They are the only living things on the entire planet. They feed on the chemical energy available in the ocean around them. The world belongs to them completely. They slowly multiply, forming vast, invisible clouds in the water column. They are the quiet, unseen architects of the future. The ocean is no longer just a chemical soup. It is now a living soup, teeming with countless tiny, simple beings. Some of these early organisms develop a new strategy. They begin to clump together, forming thin, slimy mats on the seafloor in shallow, sunlit waters. Generation after generation grows on top of the last, trapping sediment from the water. Over thousands of years, these layers build up into strange, mound-like structures. These are stromatolites, the first large-scale structures ever built by life on Earth. They are living rocks, monuments to the patient, persistent power of the microscopic world. A new kind of microbe evolves. It is a revolutionary development. These tiny organisms, known as cyanobacteria, develop a remarkable new skill. They learn to harness the energy of the faint, distant sun. This process is called photosynthesis. They take in sunlight, water and carbon dioxide, and in return, they produce energy for themselves. But this process also releases a waste product, a gas highly reactive and deadly to most life then. This waste product is oxygen. For the first time, free oxygen begins to enter the oceans and the atmosphere. At first, this oxygen does not build up because the oceans are full of dissolved iron from volcanic birth. As the cyanobacteria pump out oxygen, it immediately reacts with this iron. The iron rusts and sinks to the sea floor. Over hundreds of millions of years, this lays down banded iron formations on the seafloor. The oceans are literally rusting. The color of the sea slowly begins to change, from a brownish green to a clearer, more familiar blue as the iron is removed. Eventually, the dissolved iron in the oceans is all used up. Now, the oxygen produced by the tiny cyanobacteria has nowhere to go. It begins to build up in the water, and then it escapes into the atmosphere. This is the great oxygenation event. It is a global catastrophe for the old forms of life. The anaerobic organisms, which cannot tolerate oxygen, are driven into retreat. They die out in massive numbers. They find refuge in oxygen-free pockets deep in mud, or near volcanic vents. The world is being terraformed by its smallest inhabitants. This event, though catastrophic for early life, paves the way for a new and more complex future. The presence of oxygen in the atmosphere will eventually lead to the formation of the ozone layer, protecting the surface from harmful solar radiation. And the higher energy levels made possible by an oxygen-rich environment will allow for the evolution of larger, more complex cells, and eventually multicellular life. While life is quietly transforming the oceans, the Earth itself is not still. The planet's crust is not one solid piece. It is broken into massive plates, like giant cracked pieces of an eggshell. These plates float upon the semi-molten mantle beneath them. Driven by immense convection currents deep within the Earth, these tectonic plates are in constant, slow-motion movement. They drift at a pace of only a few centimeters per year, the speed at which your fingernails grow. But over the vastness of geological time, this slow dance dramatically reshapes the face of the planet. Continents collide. When they do, the rock is crumpled and forced upwards, creating immense mountain ranges. The Himalayas, the Alps, the Andes, all are born from these slow, powerful collisions. Elsewhere, continents rift apart. Great cracks open in the crust, and new ocean basins are born between the separating land masses. The Atlantic Ocean, for example, is the result of the Americas pulling away from Europe and Africa. This constant rearrangement changes the shape and size of the oceans. It alters the pathways of ocean currents, which in turn affects the global climate. Imagine the world from a great height, with time sped up. You would see the continents waltzing across the globe. They gather together into a single giant supercontinent, Rodinia, and then they break apart again. The oceans close and open like giant lungs. The geography of the world is in a state of perpetual flux. These changes have profound effects on the life evolving in the seas. When continents are clustered together, shallow coastal seas are less common. When they break apart, vast new shallow water habitats are created, providing new opportunities for life to diversify. For billions of years, life on Earth remained simple. It consisted of single-celled organisms, simple, soft-bodied, multicellular creatures. The oceans were quiet, inhabited by microbial mats, strange, quilt-like beings that left few fossils behind. But then, around 540 million years ago, something extraordinary happened. In a relatively short burst of geological time, perhaps just 20 million years, the diversity of life in the oceans exploded. This event is so dramatic that it is called the Cambrian explosion. Suddenly, the blueprints for almost all major animal groups that exist today appeared in the fossil record. It was a burst of evolutionary creativity unlike any other. The oceans, which had been so quiet, were suddenly filled with a bizarre and wonderful array of new creatures. Animals with hard shells appeared for the first time. Exoskeletons emerged. This offered protection from predators and a framework to support larger bodies. Creatures with legs evolved. Creatures with antennae evolved. Creatures with complex eyes evolved, navigating the world in entirely new ways. The simple, peaceful ecosystem of the past was replaced by a more complex and dangerous one. The first true predators. The prey they hunted. The evolutionary arms race had begun. The sounds of the ocean began to change. They were no longer just the sounds of water and geology. Now there was the faint scuttling of jointed legs on the seabed, the snap of a predator's jaws capturing its meal, the crunch of a hard shell being broken. Among the incredible diversity of the Cambrian seas, one group of animals became exceptionally successful. They were the trilobites. These remarkable creatures were arthropods, distant relatives of modern insects, spiders, crustaceans. Their bodies were divided into 3 lobes, which is where they get their name. They had a hard, jointed exoskeleton, which they would shed as they grew, leaving behind empty shells that would become abundant fossils. They were some of the most complex animals of their time, boasting the first sophisticated compound eyes in the animal kingdom. Trilobites were incredibly diverse. Over their 270 million year history, they evolved into more than 20,000 different species. Some were tiny, no bigger than a grain of rice, while others grew to be over 2 feet long. They occupied nearly every available niche in the marine environment. Some were predators, hunting worms on the seafloor. Others were scavengers, cleaning up debris. Many were filter feeders, sifting tiny particles of food from the water. They crawled, burrowed, and some even learned to swim gracefully through the water column, their many legs paddling in a rhythmic wave. For millions of years, the trilobites were the kings of the ocean floor. The world was theirs. Imagine the sandy or muddy bottom of a shallow sea, covered in the intricate tracks left by these creatures as they foraged for food. The seafloor would have been a constantly shifting tapestry of their trails. When they felt threatened, many trilobites could roll themselves up into a tight armoured ball, much like a modern woodlouse. This defensive posture protected their soft underside and vulnerable legs from the new predators that were evolving alongside them. While trilobites dominated the seafloor, another quiet revolution was taking place in the warm, clear, shallow waters of the tropics. New types of organisms began to build massive structures, creating entirely new habitats. These were the first true coral reefs. They were not built by the same corals we know today, but by ancient, now extinct, tabulate corals, rugose corals. Like modern corals, they were small, soft-bodied animals called polyps that secreted hard skeletons of calcium carbonate. And they grew in vast colonies, with each new generation building upon the skeletons of the last. These reefs were the first great cities of the ocean. They created complex three-dimensional structures where none had existed before. This architecture provided countless nooks and crannies, offering shelter and living space for a huge variety of other creatures. Sponges anchored themselves to the reef framework. Sea lilies, crinoids, anchored themselves to the reef framework. Brachiopods anchored themselves to the reef framework. Snails crawled over its surfaces. Trilobites crawled over its surfaces. The first primitive fish, small and jawless, darted in and out of the coral branches, seeking refuge from predators. The reefs became vibrant centers of biodiversity. The soundscape of the reef would have been unique. Not the crackle of a modern reef, but perhaps a softer, more muffled sound. The gentle swish of water moving through the intricate coral structures. The soft scraping of creatures grazing on algae growing on the skeletons. It was a sound of concentrated life, a gentle hum of activity in an otherwise quiet ocean. These reefs were oases of life, and their influence was profound. By building these massive structures, the corals were acting as ecosystem engineers, fundamentally changing their environment, creating opportunities for countless other species. Our journey now brings us into the Devonian period, an era so dominated by a new kind of animal that it is often called the Age of Fishes. For millions of years, fish had been small, humble creatures. Many were jawless, with sucker-like mouths filtering mud from the sea floor. Many were covered in heavy, bony armor plating, a defense against large predatory arthropods. But during the Devonian, fish underwent an incredible evolutionary radiation. They diversified into a stunning array of forms, and for the first time became the dominant predators in the ocean. The most significant innovation was the evolution of jaws. Jaws, evolved from the forwardmost gill arches, were a game-changer. They allowed fish to bite. They allowed fish to grasp. They allowed fish to tear. This opened a whole new world of feeding strategies. Predatory fish could now hunt and consume much larger prey. The small, armoured, jawless fish of the earlier seas were no match. The power dynamic of the oceans had shifted permanently. The vertebrates were now on top. Alongside jaws came the evolution of fins. Fins provided stability. Fins provided steering. Fins provided propulsion. Fish became faster. Fish became more agile. Fish became more graceful swimmers. Two major groups emerged: cartilaginous fish, primitive sharks with flexible cartilage skeletons; bony fish, skeletons of hard bone, ancestors of most modern fish; seas filled with a dazzling variety of swimmers; sleek, fast-moving sharks; heavily armoured giants. The apex predator was Dunkleosteus. The Paleozoic era, the age of ancient life that saw the rise of trilobites, coral reefs. The first great fishes came to a catastrophic end. Around 252 million years ago, the planet experienced the most severe extinction event in its history. It's known as the Permian-Triassic extinction, or more simply, the Great Dying. It was a silent apocalypse that unfolded over thousands of years, wiping out an estimated 96% of all marine species. The vibrant, bustling oceans were rendered nearly lifeless. The exact cause is still debated, but evidence points to a period of massive, prolonged volcanic activity in what is now Siberia. These eruptions spewed enormous quantities of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. The planet warmed dramatically. This warming had devastating effects on the oceans. As the water temperature rose, the amount of oxygen the water could hold plummeted. The oceans became stagnant and anoxic, suffocating the creatures that lived in them. It was a global catastrophe on an unimaginable scale. The great reefs built by the tabulate corals died and crumbled. The great reefs built by the rugose corals died and crumbled. The last of the trilobites, which had survived for over 270 million years, finally vanished forever. The seas fell silent. The intricate food webs that had taken hundreds of millions of years to build completely collapsed. Only the hardiest, most adaptable creatures survived. Life in the ocean was forced to make an almost complete restart. While the dinosaurs began their conquest of the land, a dramatic story was unfolding in the sea. Several different groups of land-dwelling reptiles felt the ancient pull of the water, and over millions of years they began to adapt to a marine existence. Their limbs slowly transformed into flippers, their bodies becoming streamlined for moving through water. These were not fish, but air-breathing reptiles returning to the ancestral home of their distant vertebrate ancestors. They were pioneers, charting a new course for reptile evolution and becoming the new masters of the Mesozoic seas. One of the earliest groups were the nothosaurs, semi-aquatic, a bit like modern seals. They had webbed feet, long, flexible bodies, and were likely ambush predators hunting fish in shallow coastal waters. They could still crawl onto land, perhaps to rest or lay eggs on the shore. A beautiful intermediate step, a living bridge between two worlds. Imagine them basking on a warm Triassic beach, then slipping silently back into the clear blue water to hunt. Following them came reptiles fully committed to the ocean, having lost their ability to move on land entirely. Legs evolved into powerful paddle-like flippers, tails became strong engines for propulsion, and they developed ways to give birth to live young in the water. Creatures like the ichthyosaurs and the plesiosaurs, new forms perfectly in tune with their aquatic world. Section 3. The gentle giants, plesiosaurs. Among the great marine reptiles, one group stands out for its unique and elegant design, the plesiosaurs. These were the animals with the famously long necks, a feature that has captured human imagination for centuries. Imagine a creature with a broad, turtle-like body. Imagine 4 powerful wing-like flippers. Imagine a neck of astonishing length, topped with a small head full of sharp teeth. They were not fast swimmers, but powerful and graceful ones. They likely flew through the water, using their 4 flippers in a smooth figure-8 motion, much like a sea lion does today, much like a penguin does today. The purpose of that incredibly long neck has been a subject of much debate. It was not flexible like a snake. It was actually quite stiff. They could not have held it high out of the water in a graceful swan-like curve. Instead, it seems they held it straight out in front of them as they swam. A popular theory is that they used it to hunt. They could glide slowly towards a school of fish, their large body remaining distant and unseen, while their small head darted in at the last moment to snatch a meal. The neck allowed them to get close to their prey without startling it. There was a great variety of plesiosaurs. Some, like Elasmosaurus, had necks that were truly extreme, containing over 70 vertebrae. Their necks could be longer than the rest of their body combined. Others, known as plesiosaurs, went in the opposite direction. They evolved short, thick necks and massive, crocodile-like heads. These plesiosaurs, like the formidable Liopleurodon, were the apex predators of the Jurassic seas. True sea monsters of immense size and power, a stark contrast to their long-necked fish-eating cousins. The world of the Mesozoic, the vibrant, reptile-dominated world of dinosaurs, plesiosaurs, mosasaurs, came to a sudden and violent end. About 66 million years ago, an asteroid or comet at least 6 miles wide slammed into the Earth. It struck in the shallow waters of what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, creating the Chicxulub crater. The impact was more powerful than billions of atomic bombs. It sent a devastating wave of heat and a colossal shockwave across the globe. The immediate effects were apocalyptic. The impact triggered mega tsunamis hundreds of feet high, tearing across oceans and deep into continents. It threw vast amounts of rock and dust high into the atmosphere. As this material rained back down, it heated the air to oven-like temperatures, broiling any unsheltered life on the surface. But the worst was yet to come. Fine dust soot from global wildfires shrouded the planet, blocking out the sun. This impact winter may have lasted for years. In the oceans, the darkness was a death sentence for the plankton. Without sunlight, the photosynthesizing algae at the base of the food web collapsed. That meant starvation for nearly everything that depended on them. The entire marine ecosystem fell apart, from the smallest zooplankton to the largest mosasaurs. In the wake of the Great Extinction, a new world dawned. This is the Cenozoic era, the age of new life, and it is the era we are still living in. With the dinosaurs gone from the land and the great marine reptiles gone from the sea, a new group of animals was given its chance to shine. These were the mammals. During the Mesozoic, mammals had been small, secretive, mostly nocturnal creatures living in the shadows of the dinosaurs. But with their competitors and predators suddenly removed, they began to diversify and grow, eventually filling the empty ecological roles across the planet. The oceans, too, were recovering. While the extinction had been devastating, some life had survived. Some species of fish, sharks, crabs, snails had weathered the storm. The modern corals, though battered, had survived and began the slow work of rebuilding the reefs. The microscopic plankton at the base of the food web recovered within a few thousand years, a geological blink of an eye. The ocean's primary engine of life was restarting, and the seas were once again becoming a productive and welcoming environment, waiting for new, large animals to arrive. For the first few million years of the Cenozoic, the oceans lacked any large, air-breathing predators. The top niches were temporarily reoccupied by large sharks, giant, flightless predatory birds that patrolled the coastlines. The story of the first whales is a fossil treasure. It begins around 50 million years ago with a creature called Pachycetus. Found in what is now Pakistan, Pachycetus was four-legged. Pachycetus was furry. Pachycetus was hoofed about the size of a wolf. It looked nothing like a modern whale, but key details in its skull, particularly its ear bones, show it is the earliest known ancestor of the whale lineage. It lived along the marshy edges of a shallow sea, likely wading into the water to hunt for fish, much like a modern grizzly bear might do. A land animal, beginning to dip its toes in the water. A few million years later, Ambulocetus, the walking whale. Major step closer to marine life. About the size of a large crocodile, long snout, powerful hind legs, feet huge and paddle-like, swam by, undulating its spine, kicking its powerful back legs like a modern otter. Could still walk on land, but clumsy. An ambush predator, lying in wait in the water, lunging at prey that came near the edge. Living between two worlds. The transition continued. Later, fossils like Rhodhocetus, with even shorter, weaker hind legs, no longer useful for walking on land. Nostrils shifting backwards toward the top of the head, spending almost all of its time in water. From the early aquatic whales like Basilosaurus, the whale family tree split into two major branches, which have dominated the oceans ever since. These are the Odontocetes and the Mysticetes. This split represents two very different and equally successful solutions to finding food in the vast ocean. It was a fundamental division that sent the two groups on radically different evolutionary paths, creating the incredible diversity of whales we know today. The toothed whales, as their name suggests, kept their teeth. Dolphins, porpoises, sperm whales, orcas. They are active hunters. They use their teeth to catch and grasp individual large prey items like fish, squid, seals and other whales. Many of them developed a sophisticated new sense, echolocation. They produce high-frequency clicks and listen for the echoes that bounce back. This allows them to see with sound, to navigate and hunt in complete darkness or in murky water. It is a biological sonar system of incredible precision. The baleen whales took a completely different path. They lost their teeth entirely. In their place, they evolved baleen, hundreds of long fringed plates, made of keratin, the same material as your fingernails. These whales are filter feeders. They take in enormous mouthfuls of water and then use their powerful tongue to force the water out through the baleen plates. Beneath the surface of the ocean, sound travels much farther and faster than it does in the air. For the new marine mammals, sound became the primary sense. It became their way of seeing, of communicating, and of understanding their vast, three-dimensional world. The toothed whales perfected the sharp clicks of echolocation, painting a detailed picture of their surroundings in their minds. But the baleen whales developed something else entirely. They developed song. These are not just simple calls, but long, complex, and repeating sequences, moans, cries, rumbles. The most famous of these singers is the humpback whale. The song of a male humpback is one of the most complex vocal displays in the animal kingdom. The songs can last for over 20 minutes, and they are sung over and over again for hours or even days. All the males in a single population sing the same song, but the song slowly evolves over the course of a season. From one year to the next, the song can be completely different. It seems to be a form of cultural transmission, a shared artistic expression that we are only just beginning to understand. These songs are incredibly powerful. The low-frequency sounds can travel for hundreds, perhaps even thousands of miles through the ocean's deep sound channels. A whale singing off the coast of Puerto Rico might be heard by another whale hundreds of miles away. The ocean is crisscrossed by these invisible threads of sound, a network of communication that connects these giant solitary animals across immense distances. They sing to attract mates, to challenge rivals, and perhaps for reasons we can't yet fathom. Section 1. The first footprints on the sand. Our journey through time now arrives at a new and significant moment. For billions of years, the ocean's story was one of geology, biology, continents, shifting creatures evolving. But now a new character steps onto the stage. A creature who walks on two legs with a curious mind and clever hands. This creature is us, Homo sapiens. Our story is deeply intertwined with the sea. For much of our history, we have lived near its shores, looked out at its horizon, and listened to the rhythm of its waves. Our journey with the ocean begins with the first tentative footprints left in the wet sand at the water's edge. Imagine one of our distant ancestors, hundreds of thousands of years ago, standing on a beach. Perhaps in Africa, or later, on the shores of Asia or Europe. For them, the ocean is a place of immense power and mystery. It is a boundary, the edge of their known world. But it is also a place of great opportunity. The constant back and forth of the tides leaves behind gifts. Shellfish, crabs, edible seaweed are revealed in the rock pools and on the mudflats. The sea offers a reliable and abundant source of food, a buffer against the hardships of a hunter-gatherer life. The shore becomes a place of safety and sustenance. This first relationship with the sea is one of respect and close observation. Our ancestors learned the rhythms of the tides, as if they were the breathing of a great beast. As humans spent more time on and near the sea, it began to fill their minds as well as their bellies. The ocean was powerful, unpredictable, and full of strange creatures. It could be a gentle provider one day and a raging destroyer the next. It was only natural that our ancestors would try to explain this immense power through stories. They populated the sea with gods and goddesses, monsters, spirits. The ocean became a living, breathing entity with its own will, its own moods, and its own personality. It became the backdrop for our greatest myths and legends. In ancient Greece, the sea was the realm of Poseidon, the temperamental god of the oceans and earthquakes. He could stir the waters into a furious storm with his trident, or grant sailors calm seas and a safe passage. In Norse mythology, the great world serpent Jörmungandr lay in the ocean, encircling the entire world, biting his own tail. Sailors whispered tales of sirens, beautiful creatures whose enchanting songs would lure ships to crash upon the rocks. They told stories of the kraken, a colossal squid that could pull entire vessels down into the abyss. These stories were more than just entertainment. They were a way of understanding and respecting the ocean. They were a form of risk management. The stories of monsters in certain waters might have been a way to remember dangerous currents or hidden reefs. The rituals and prayers to sea gods were a way of acknowledging the profound forces that were beyond human control. These myths gave a voice to the ocean's mysteries, translating its raw power into a language of character and intention that people could understand and relate to. When you listen to the ocean, you can almost hear these old stories. The deep roar of a large wave could be the angry voice of a sea god. The strange sigh of water draining through pebbles could be the whisper of a sea spirit. The mist rising from the surface could be the breath of a sleeping monster. For thousands of years, boats were powered by human muscle alone. But then came another revolutionary invention, the sail. Someone, somewhere, noticed the wind push against their clothing, or a simple mat. They realized this invisible force could be captured and used. The first sails, simple squares of animal hide, or woven reeds held up by a single mast. They were not very efficient. They could only sail with the wind behind them. But they were a beginning, the first time we harnessed a non-living power for transport. Over centuries, sail technology was perfected. Shipbuilders raised taller masts and added complex rigging. Sailmakers cut and shaped fabrics into more aerodynamic sails. Then sailors and designers combined sails with a deep keel to sail not just with the wind, but against it. A monumental breakthrough. Ships were no longer at the complete mercy of the wind's direction. They could go where they wanted, when they wanted. The age of sail transformed the world. It powered the great voyages of exploration. It established global trade routes. It shaped the rise and fall of empires. The ocean became crisscrossed by white wings of sailing ships. The creak of wooden masts, the flap and snap of canvas sails, the rhythmic shouts of sailors hauling lines. The sea, a place of work, a place of commerce, a place of adventure. Section 6. Charting the Unknown. The Great Voyages. The sail gave humanity the key to unlock the globe. Driven by a thirst for knowledge, for wealth and for power, explorers set out from their home ports to chart the unknown. These were voyages of incredible courage and hardship. Sailors would be at sea for months, even years at a time, facing storms, disease, and the constant fear of the unknown. They sailed off the edge of their known maps into a world of myth and speculation. With every league they sailed, they were replacing fantasy with fact, drawing the true shape of our world. These voyages connected continents and cultures in a way that had never happened before. Ferdinand Magellan's expedition was the first to circumnavigate the globe, proving definitively that the Earth was round and that all its oceans were connected. James Cook, a master navigator and cartographer, charted vast areas of the Pacific, including Australia and Hawaii, with unprecedented accuracy. These journeys were not just about geography. They were encounters between different worlds, encounters that would change the course of human history forever. Navigation on the open ocean was an incredibly complex art and science. Captains and their navigators used the sun, the moon, and the stars to determine their latitude. But finding longitude, their east-west position, was a much harder problem. It was a puzzle that baffled the greatest minds for centuries. The solution, when it came, was a technological one: the creation of a highly accurate clock, a marine chronometer that could keep precise time on a rocking ship. This allowed sailors to calculate their longitude accurately, making ocean travel much safer and more predictable. The Industrial Revolution, which transformed human society on land, also brought a massive wave of change to the oceans. The first great change was the replacement of sail with steam. The invention of the steam engine meant that ships were no longer dependent on the wind at all. A steamship could travel in a straight line on a predictable schedule regardless of the weather. This made ocean travel and trade faster, cheaper, and far more reliable. The rhythmic splash of paddle wheels and the steady thrum of a propeller replaced the creak of masts and the snap of sails. These new ships were also built from new materials. Wood was replaced by iron and then by steel. This allowed ships to become much larger and stronger than ever before. The era of the ocean liner began. These were floating palaces, capable of carrying thousands of people across the Atlantic in just a few days. The ocean was shrinking. It became easier and more common for people to cross the Great Water Barrier, leading to new waves of migration and a more interconnected global culture. The deep, resonant horn of a steamship became a new and powerful voice on the sea. This new industrial power was also applied to fishing. The small sailing trawler was replaced by the large, powerful steam trawler. These vessels could pull enormous nets, scrape the seabed more effectively, and operate in weather that would have kept sailing ships in port. While industry was focused on exploiting the ocean, a different kind of human curiosity was also turning to the sea. The 19th century saw the birth of oceanography as a formal science. For the first time, scientists began to study the ocean not just as a surface to be travelled, but as a deep, complex, three-dimensional world to be understood. They wanted to know what lived in the abyss, what the seafloor was made of, how the great currents moved. It was the beginning of a new age of discovery, an exploration of inner space. The landmark event in this scientific awakening was the Challenger expedition from 1872 to 1876. A British naval vessel, HMS Challenger, was converted into a floating laboratory. It set out on a 4-year voyage around the globe with a single mission: to investigate everything about the deep ocean. The scientists on board systematically measured temperature and the salinity of the water at different depths. They dredged the sea floor, bringing up rocks and mud from miles below the surface. Most excitingly, they brought up strange and unknown creatures from the abyss. The Challenger expedition completely transformed our understanding of the ocean. Before, many scientists believed that the deep sea, below a certain depth, was a lifeless void. The Challenger's nets came up teeming with life from even the deepest parts of the ocean they could reach. They discovered over 4,700 new species of marine life. They proved that life existed throughout the entire water column, from the sunlit surface to the dark, crushing pressure of the abyss. They also made the first systematic maps of the ocean floor, revealing vast underwater mountain ranges and deep trenches. This scientific exploration was a quiet and patient endeavour. It involved the slow, methodical work of lowering instruments on miles of rope, waiting for hours, and then carefully hauling them back up. For all of human history, our experience of the ocean had been from the surface. We could look down into it from a boat, or wade into its edges. The underwater world was a place we could visit only by holding our breath, for a fleeting and frantic minute or two. All of that changed in the middle of the 20th century with the invention of the aqualung, SCUBA, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. It was co-created by the French naval officer Jacques Cousteau. SCUBA became a key that unlocked a door to a new world. For the first time, an ordinary person could put on a mask, a tank of compressed air, a regulator, and simply step into the ocean. They could breathe freely, move with the weightless grace of a fish. Stay underwater for an hour or more, observing a coral reef up close in its own environment. The invention democratized underwater exploration. It allowed millions, not just specialists, to experience the magic beneath the waves. This first-hand experience changed our culture. Cousteau's films and TV brought the vibrant, colourful life of the sea into living rooms. People realised the ocean was not silent or empty, but bustling and beautiful. That awareness helped fuel the modern environmental movement. It is one thing to be told the oceans are in trouble. It is another to see the beauty being threatened. The primary sound of SCUBA is your own breathing. A slow inhale, the gentle hiss and gurgle of bubbles on the exhale. A rhythmic, meditative sound. The sound that links your breath to the water around you. Our journey through the history of humans and the sea has shown our ever-increasing power and reach. From simple foragers on the shore, we have become a global force, a geological scale influence on the oceans of the world. In the last century, this influence has grown exponentially. The sheer weight of our presence, the accumulated impact of billions of people, is now changing the fundamental chemistry and biology of the seas in ways that are both profound and alarming. The ocean that has sustained us for so long is now under threat from our own success. The massive increase in fishing, powered by industrial technology, has pushed many of the world's great fish populations to the point of collapse. The belief in the ocean's infinite bounty has been proven tragically wrong. Our waste, from plastic bags, microscopic fibres, has found its way into every corner of the ocean, from the surface to the deepest trenches. This plastic pollution harms marine life and works its way into the very fabric of the ecosystem. The runoff of fertilizers from farms creates vast dead zones in coastal areas where the oxygen is used up and most life cannot survive. The most pervasive change of all is happening silently. The same industrial activity that powers our world is releasing vast quantities of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The ocean has been absorbing about a quarter of this excess carbon dioxide. This is changing the water's chemistry, making it more acidic. This ocean acidification makes it harder for creatures like corals, clams, plankton to build their shells and skeletons. Beyond the science, the history, the economics, the ocean has always occupied a vast and powerful place in our culture and in our souls. It is a place we turn to for inspiration, for solace, for a sense of perspective. It has been the subject of our greatest paintings, our most profound poems, our most thrilling adventure stories. Herman Melville's, Moby Dick, Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. The ocean has served as a stage for our deepest struggles with nature, with each other, with ourselves. The sea is a powerful symbol. Its vastness represents freedom, endless possibility. Its depths represent the unknown, the mysterious, the subconscious mind. The constant rhythm of its tides represents life-death renewal. When we stand on the shore and look out at the horizon, we are often looking inwards as well. The ocean mirrors our own moods. It can be calm and reflective, or stormy and turbulent. Section 15. The Eternal Shore, Our Place by the Sea. And so our journey through the long history of humans and the sea comes to a close. We have walked on the first beaches, paddled the first canoes, and sailed across the world's oceans. We have hunted its greatest creatures and marvelled at its smallest. We have plumbed its depths with our instruments and our imagination. We have filled it with our myths, our trade, our waste, and our wonder. Our story is now woven so tightly into the ocean story that they can no longer be separated. We are a part of its present, and we will be the primary authors of its future. After all this time, all this history, we still find ourselves drawn back to the shore. We still come to the water's edge to listen, just as our earliest ancestors did. The world has changed in unimaginable ways, but the sound of the waves has not. It is a constant. It is a sound of permanence in a world of constant change. It connects us to every person who has ever stood on a shore and listened. It connects us to the deep geological time of the planet itself. It is a sound of home. To listen to the ocean is to listen to history. It is to hear the echo of the first rains filling the basins of a young earth. It is to hear the scuttling of a trilobite on a Cambrian seafloor. It is to hear the powerful beat of a plesiosaur's flipper, the song of a humpback whale, and the creak of a tall ship's mast. The time has come to let go completely. The journey is over. The story has been told. The breathing is slow and steady. The mind is quiet and calm. There is nothing left to hold on to. Not on the shore anymore, floating safely and comfortably on the surface of the calm night sea. You are buoyant and weightless. The water supports you perfectly. Stars like a gentle blanket of tiny lights. The water is warm and silky against your skin. You are completely safe. You are completely at peace. With each gentle breath, allow yourself to sink just a little bit. Not falling, but drifting. Slowly, gently, peacefully drifting from the surface into the deep, quiet, blue-black water. You can still breathe easily and freely, leaving the surface world of thoughts and worries behind, sinking into the silent, peaceful world of sleep. The water is a deep, comforting blue. It is the color of tranquility. It is the color of rest. The pressure is a gentle, comforting hug, a secure embrace from the ocean. As you drift deeper, the last echoes of the day fade away. The last remnants of thought dissolve into the blue. Only the slow, gentle downward movement, sinking into the great quiet mystery, sinking into the deepest and most restful part of yourself, the deep ocean of your own mind, profound stillness and peace. No currents here to disturb you, no sounds to distract you, only a vast, silent, benevolent calm, a deep and dreamless peace. Waves on the distant shore, a soft, faint song you can barely hear, a faraway lullaby, a final, gentle whisper. Good night, the sound of the world watching over you as you rest. You are safe in the heart of the ocean. You are safe in the heart of the night. Let go now. Let the deep water hold you. Let the silence cradle you. Let the darkness comfort you. Drift now. Drift into the deep, peaceful, restorative sleep. Good night.